We've already taken a look at how Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was presented differently in different parts of the world. In the UK and other countries in Europe, it was censored to remove references to nunchucks and all things ninja. Now there's no need to go into that here, you can go watch that video after this one if you haven't seen it already. But interestingly, Japan got a completely different spin-off to the original 1987 cartoon. They still got that cartoon, fully dubbed into Japanese too, and they also got the live-action movies as well, although oddly the first film was titled Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. They didn't even bother to rebrand it to Hero in Europe. But again, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the Super Turtles, or sometimes Mutant Turtles Superman Legend. This was a two-part Japanese anime that sat alongside the original US cartoon, but it isn't canon to that timeline, which I'll explain in a minute. It exists mostly to help sell more toys, as apparently the original show didn't offer enough already. But to gain more traction in the Japanese market, they needed to go bigger, especially as these aired in 1996, or they were at least released in 1996, just as the original cartoon came to an end. But there was still demand in Japan because they also have their own exclusive manga. So what exactly were the Super Turtles? Well, let's take a look. We start with episode 1, The Great Crisis of the Super Turtles, The Saint Appears. Except we don't, actually. You see, I found multiple breakdowns of these episodes online, and they often mention how it's a bit jarring that it just throws you in at the deep end with the first episode, and it feels like there should have been something before it. And there was. There was the Japanese manga that served as a prequel to the series, and also didn't. Unfortunately, it's almost impossible to find the full set of these days, and even if you do, they're all obviously in Japanese. And if you've been a fan of my channel for a while now, you'll know that that's definitely not a skill of mine. Except that between 2009 and 2011, a group of guys on a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles forum not only managed to digitize, but also fully translated these as well. Full credits will be in the description below because seriously, they did an amazing job. The manga effectively resets the timeline, explaining from the very beginning who and what the Turtles are, and it talks about how they defeated Shredder, which didn't happen in the cartoon, and it didn't seem to happen at the end of the Ninja Turtles Gaiden manga either, so I'm assuming this is a completely separate timeline, or universe, to anything that we've seen before. Suddenly, out of nowhere, there's a flash and the Turtles are transported to the Neutrino Kingdom. Shredder has also returned, looking much more like something out of a Japanese show than an American one. After whenever the battle was in which he was defeated, he was rescued by Krang and given an all-new set of armour. Krang has found a Mutastone in an underground temple, which is essentially mutagen in its purest form. There are multiple stones. This one harnesses evil powers, but some harness the powers of good. Bring them together and you have the ultimate power, so essentially Infinity Stones. Except these ones also allow you to mutate. Unlike the actual mutagen, however, with only one of the stones, your time mutated is limited. It's not a permanent transformation. Meanwhile, the Turtles were transported there by someone called Chrismu. She explains that the Turtles have been chosen to be given the Mutastones of Courage. With them, they'll go through a super mutation to become Wolverine. I mean, the Super Turtles, each with an all-new set of weapons. With their new powers, Chrismu asks them to recover the Mutastone of Darkness from Krang. Shredder then turns up at the temple with Krang, Bebop, Rocksteady and some foot soldiers all in tow to try and recover the remaining stones. But when the Turtles turn up, Shredder doesn't want to be the first to test out the Mutastone of Darkness, so instead powers up Bebop and Rocksteady. Only just as the battle is about to begin, the effect wears off for the Turtles, as their transformation can only last about 3 minutes. Although there's no mention of any cooldown time, I don't quite know what the rules are for when they can use the stones again, but presumably it's not straight away, but we don't really know. Anyway, they lose the fight, but before the Turtles are finished off, an earthquake causes a crack in the ground into which the Turtles fall. Chris Moo turns up and explains that the only way out is to rebuild the ancient technology left by those that built the temple. It turns out that it's some form of hover cycle, and the turtles use it to get out of the crevasse. Which, by the way, I need to point out they made a toy of this bike, even though it only appears in the manga, because of course they did. They use the stones again to enter into a super mutation battle with Bebop and Rocksteady. But of course the bad guy minions are no use, so Krang mutates Shredder into the Dragon Zord, maybe? But the splitting of the stones continues to unbalance this world, and the temple collapses, burying Krang and Shredder, allowing the turtles to escape on the hover cycle. We'll skip over issue 2 because it's not really important to the setting up of the anime. It's basically Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossed with the Magic School Bus. Instead, we'll move on to issue 3, which is both useful and not useful for context. Krang has been deciphering the stone slabs from inside the temple, while Chris Moo is able to project the same slabs for the turtles. It speaks of the combination of all the stones to merge the bearers into one superpower, the Saint. Only Donatello does some deciphering of his own and realises that the super mutations have been draining Chris Moo of her power, and becoming the Saint could destroy her. Shredder has grown even stronger thanks to another Krang machine. However, Donatello doesn't want to transform again because he doesn't want Chris Moo to die. But there isn't really much choice. Even Chris Moo temporarily mutating Splinter doesn't do anything, as Shredder is being taken over by an evil force called Dark Moo. Chris Moo explains that when the stones were formed, they split into two, and that Dark Moo is her other half. She's accepted that she must die in order to rid the universe of Dark Moo. Reluctantly, the turtles merge into the Saint and take down Shredder and Dark Moo. I think we'll just gloss over the whole explosions at the World Trade Center thing. But even so, the Mutastones don't appear to have lost their power, so Chris Moo must still be alive in some form somewhere, but then that must mean that Dark Moo is also still alive. It seems to be the setup for something bigger, but that's where it ends. When we finally get to the anime, we get a basic rundown of the main plot points from the manga. The introduction of Chris Moo, the bestowing of the Mutastones, the super mutation, the Dark Stone and its mutations too, and finally the Saint mutation. So this is probably why those that jump into the anime without reading the manga first think that a lot of information is thrown at you at the beginning, and that's because it is. But obviously this is just the jumping off point. The episode proper starts with a space shuttle, the Endeavour, radioing down to Earth to inform NASA that there's been a crisis with some stars disappearing. This is the work of Krang, and he's working up to destroying the Earth by resurrecting Dark Moo. However, this is where it gets a little confusing, because it appears that while issue 1 is important to understanding what is happening here, issue 3 seems to be mostly being retconned, as at this point, while it mentions that the Saint is already in existence, Dark Moo hasn't appeared yet. On Earth, Chris Moo informs the Turtles, April and Splinter that the disappearance of the stars must be linked to someone trying to resurrect Dark Moo. But they're interrupted when Shredder appears with Bebop and Rocksteady, who use the power of the Dark Stone to transform, prompting the Turtles to also super mutate. And rather than a simple ninja fight, we get a full-on anime battle scene between the 7 of them. But it was all a distraction to buy time in order to revive Dark Moo, only Splinter and Chris Moo weren't falling for it and turn up at the Technodrome to face Krang. Meanwhile, the Earth is being hit by natural disasters, and we even get a cameo from the Punk Frogs, although there's only 3 of them for some reason. While the Foot Soldiers, who are on vacation in Miami for some reason, get sucked up into a tornado and say that they're blasting off again, like an ever so slightly earlier version of Team Rocket. And then New York is engulfed by a giant tidal wave, washing everyone away, like it's a scene straight out of an early script for The Day After Tomorrow. But there's now nothing stopping Dark Moo from emerging from the stone and releasing her power to turn Shredder into a giant mutated form. The Turtles attempt to fight him by causing him to drop rubble from buildings onto himself, which does actually work, but Dark Moo decides she'll just destroy the Earth herself, so the Turtles mutate into the Saint so they can pursue her. However, they only have an arbitrary 100 seconds before the effect wears off. The only way to defeat her is for Chrismu to restrain her while the turtles combine all of their powers together through the Saint to destroy them both, or at least imprison them both back into the stones. Episode 2, on the other hand, has absolutely nothing to do with any of that. The turtles land in Japan and are just walking around in the daylight, even grabbing a taxi, which is a weird thing to see when you're used to them being ninjas and lurking in the shadows, especially as the manga even talks about having to wear disguises in order to go out in public. Meanwhile, Krang has also set his sights on Japan, as he's apparently found another Mutastone, so sends Shredder, Bebop and Rocksteady to retrieve it, but they're set upon by a team of ninjas as soon as they arrive. These ninjas are the ones that called Splinter and the Turtles to Japan. They possess a legendary mirror which is inlaid with 7 stones that Donatello suspects are Mutastones. The ninjas need the turtles to help protect the mirror, and even provide them with some ninja armour to help. Now, in this episode, neither the turtles nor the bad guys have the Mutastones that we saw in the manga or the first episode. They're done. There's no power to gain from them, at least not at this point. Shredder, Bebop and Rocksteady all turn up at their village, and in order to protect the mirror, the ninjas make a hidden fortress appear from underground, and they all race to the top to retrieve it. Shredder gets to it first and revives some guardian beasts, to become the White Tiger Zord, maybe? And also mutates Bebop and Rocksteady into metal beasts. But conveniently, there's 7 stones, so more guardian beasts are revived, all of which begin to merge with the turtles in a metal mutation to create metal versions of themselves. Although, again, for some reason there's an arbitrary time limit of 6 minutes. We don't know why. Why was the Dark Stone 10 minutes, but the Stones of Courage only 3 minutes? Why was the Saint 100 seconds? Why is this 6 minutes? It just is. With the mutations, each of the turtles now has a specialist power that relates to their respective guardian beast. As the battle climaxes, they're able to trap the powers of the stones back into the mirror before the bad guys all retreat back to Dimension X with their tail between their legs. And that's it. That's all that was ever made. As far as I can tell, these episodes were straight to video and may never have even aired on TV. And it's sad because, honestly, I could get into this. The original 1987 cartoon is a classic, obviously, but by the time it got to the mid-90s it had gotten stale. This is something completely different, and considering it would have hit a few years into the Power Rangers craze, I honestly think an English translation of this would have worked. It's just a shame that there was only ever 2 episodes made, and obviously the manga as well. The toys were great too. They reminded me of the Mutation series, which was one of my favourite toys growing up. While they're not easy to find these days, Leonardo seems to be the most common, the playability of transforming the turtles into their super mutation form would have kept me even more entertained than my beloved Michelangelo mutation toy that I featured in videos before. These almost feel like pilot episodes to a show we never got to see, which is interesting but also disappointing to know what could have been. Anyway, that'll do it for this episode. If you like this video and you want to see more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles content, you can click on the links on the end screen. Please make sure you like and subscribe, as it really does help the channel to grow, and I will see you all next time.